Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Voices of Tomorrow 2020 at GapSummit. This year competition basically has brought 100 leaders of tomorrow across the world. Within this competition, basically, we explore ideas of bio-innovation across the different gaps of the biotechnology sector. Before we start, basically, and we transfer the words for our jury panel and the competition itself, we would like to have some special acknowledgements to all the people who made possible this competition. Next, please. Next, please. First of all, we would like to thank all the mentors, in particular, for 18 teams, basically 19 teams, all the mentors who made possible this session. In particular, we really appreciate being so supportive throughout the GapSummit, not only this edition, but the previous editions as well. Next, please. Next, please. In particular as well, we would like to thank all the specialist mentors who provided their time and their expertise, particularly to brush up some of the aspects that the team had, some questions as well as exploring different topics to refine the proposals for this year's edition. Next, please. Finally, during the Voices of Tomorrow, we have some evaluation of the projects themselves. And within that, we have two stages of selection. In the first stage, basically, on the semifinal, we thank the support of Miranda Weston-Smith and Professor Alan Barrell for their support, as well as engaging with the leaders of tomorrow. Next, please. Similarly, well, in this case, today we have the collaboration and the support of the jury panel of today. I would like to introduce Dr. Joanna Green, Richard Hepton, Dr. Phil Lullier, and Niall Moultrie. With this, basically, we will like to have some opening remarks from our panel, and I would like to transfer some words for Dr. Joanna Green and the rest of the jury panel. Thank you.
Hi everyone. So on behalf of Richard, Phil, and Neil and myself, we're all very much looking forward to your presentation today. It looks like it's going to be very sort of high quality pitches, and we've got a lot to get through. So looking forward to the rest of the afternoon.
Okay, fantastic. Phil, would you like to have some initial words before we start the session?
Yes, good morning. I'm delighted to be here. As Joanna said, we've got quite a number of high quality pitches, and I'm looking forward to the afternoon.
Fantastic. And Neil, if you would like to add anything else before we start with the session. Thank you.
Thanks, Ricardo. Hi, everyone. I'm Neil Mockton, very much echoing the rest of my panel. Very much looking forward to seeing the interesting technologies and companies presented here. A big part of my job is working with startups. So it'll be fascinating to see what the next couple of hours has in store.
Fantastic. Well, and finally, basically, before we start the session, we would like to thank all the teams, basically all the leaders of tomorrow for their time, their engagement, and all the passion that they put in this month, despite the current conditions. We really appreciate all your effort, and we basically are looking forward to hearing your pitches now. With that, we would like to transition to the next stage, which basically, just to review, we're going to have this session divided into 3 blocks. The first block will contain 3 pitches, and the remaining ones are going to be divided into the other 2 blocks. Each team is going to be allocated 3 minutes and a half for the pitch, elevator pitch, and followed by a 5-minute question and answer session, basically an engagement with the jury panel. After that, we're going to have immediately the next pitch deck. And after the 3 pitches, we're going to have audience voting space, basically, where you can all engage and rate the performance of each team, basically. This will allow us to select one of the crowd's favorite, basically, at the end of the session. And you should be able to access the polling system through the web platform and Slido embedded in the conference portal. With this, basically, we would like to basically start the session. And next, please. And next, please. With that, the first block is going to be Aptabridge, Broadbands, and Hiltmo. The first team, and I would like to introduce on behalf of the team, is represented Taylor Cottle and Charlene Tang. And well, in this case, they are going to be presenting Aptabridge. And with this, I would like to invite Taylor to join us for the pitch, please.
Unmuting would help. Thanks, Ricardo. As Ricardo mentioned, my name is Taylor Cottle, and today I'm very excited to share with you our vision at Aptabridge to bridge the gap in immunotherapy design. So let's get right to it. Next. Over the past decade, immunotherapies like antibodies, CAR T, vaccines have all emerged that bind specific targets and engage our immune system to eliminate diseased cells. However, despite our best efforts, only 40% of cancer patients, 40% still don't respond to our most effective immunotherapy. Next. To save these unresponsive patients, we really need more therapeutic options. Next. So we believe aptamers can bridge this gap. And aptamers are nucleic acid molecules that bind nearly any type of biomolecule. They're faster and they're cheaper to produce than antibodies. However, we're currently limited to monofunctional aptamers, and they only bind a single target. They're only moderately efficacious, and this has really limited their clinical success. Next. But aptamers can also be combined into multifunctional molecules. This boosts their efficacy and, more importantly, can allow us to create a sort of molecular Swiss Army knife that can engage combinations of custom targets. Unfortunately, when directly combined, aptamers often lose their functionality. So we really need a design strategy that lets us functionally bridge any combination of aptamers. Next. To overcome this challenge, we invented the patent-pending Aptabridge technology. Aptabridge utilizes a modified double-strand region to combine yet biophysically isolate independent aptamers, allowing us to combine them while maintaining their function. Our mission is to use this technology to reinvigorate the immunotherapy design pipeline. Next. To do this, we'll position Aptabridge as a platform technology using a hybrid fee-for-service and standard royalties model. Next. First, we'll engage in aptamer-producing companies, engage them in target design. We'll charge them for our R&D cycle, generate data, and file joint IP with those companies. Next. Secondly, our corporate partners will proceed to commercialization under a standard royalty agreement. And here we've included an accessibility clause where we can take uncommercialized leads, and those are made available to us for out-licensing to make sure that the Aptabridge technologies become globally distributed. Next. So far, we've filed a provisional patent and will then apply for non-dilutive grant funding to further validate this tech and secure a non-provisional patent, which is important for our model. We'll then partner with 5 companies by 2022, and based on the success of those, decide whether to pursue an IPO or exit via mergers and acquisitions with an aptamer-producing CRO that we've identified. Next. Our team has the expertise to move this project forward. We've also recruited 2 well-known nucleic acid biologists in the US and the UK, and an experienced clinician to advise us. We're actively recruiting an IP strategy mentor and looking for a technical VC that shares our vision. Next. In closing, I invite you to imagine a future where an Aptabridge regimen could not only immunize just against cancer, but against infectious disease, autoimmune disease, inflammation, allergies, and even against senescent cells. This is just the beginning of the world we intend on building, one bridge at a time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Taylor. With this, basically, I would like to transfer to the jury panel, if you could join us, and basically to Dr. Joanna Green to have some initial thoughts and open the discussion for you. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Taylor. That was an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
So I have a first question just before sort of going to my fellow judges. So I'd be interested if you could just talk a little bit more detail about specifically what it is about the multivalent aptamers that overcome the challenges in immunotherapy. So you said on your first slide that 40% of patients don't respond to immunotherapy. So I'd be interested to know why you think that your sort of aptamer product will overcome that challenge.
Sure, thank you. So one of the advantages of aptamers is the selection process. So it's widely modular, and new developments like the selects process is an in vitro selection method that allows us to essentially evolve aptamers that are specific to particular targets. And that unlocks a lot of different molecular targets. But like I said, clinically so far, we've only used the monovalent aptamers that bind the single targets. So by combining both specific targeting and then particular payloads, we can then direct things like immune cells or diagnostic tools to those particular targets that were previously unavailable. For our own R&D, we're starting with known oncology targets as that initial binding, but we imagine that this could be expanded to other currently unavailable targets.
See, thank you. Richard, Phil, and Neil, I don't know if you have any questions you wanted to ask.
I could maybe jump on Taylor's answer there on the last question. You've proposed a kind of platform technology that can be applicable to so many different potential conditions. What do you view as your first kind of go-to-market product? Which particular disease would you target first, and why?
So there's precedent in the antibody community for bivalent antibodies, and these are currently going through clinical trials. There are 3 combinations of bivalent antibodies that are going through trials that also have aptamer equivalents. So our first goal, the first kind of minimal viable product we're trying to prove, is that combination of aptamers using our bridged technology.
Taylor, it's Phil here. A question around your business build.
Sure.
In my experience, for someone like yourself, what you're proposing there, it's important to transition from, shall I say, dry lab to wet lab to build validation of your technology. In your plan, I didn't really see budget or timeline to do that.
Sure. Ricardo, if you could go back to the last slide, or Rob. One more. Forward, please. If you could click on the bridge in the bottom left corner, please. And then take us to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th slide, please. Perfect. So we have actually talked to CROs and established what the cost would be for that minimal viable product. And we can do that all by outsourcing while being within our initial thoughts for the non-dilutive grant funding. We could also take this in-house and reduce the costs. But currently, to validate this combination of, I think we have 5 different aptamer heads, we've approximated the cost for synthesis validation, modifying the bridge molecule, and then legal fees for the non-provisional patent at about $176,000 if we go through the CRO. If that answers your question.
I guess what I was referring to was, say, in vivo validation in at least animal models.
I see.
To get your technology far enough to then entice a biotech or a pharma partner to collaborate with you.
So this would get us to the in situ validation. So most people don't consider that quite in vivo yet. This would get us to the in situ validation that we think would be enough for the provisional patent filing. And then from there, we're looking to partner with companies so we'll need the second infusion of capital. Probably we'll need to go through a seed round before we can do the in vivo validation. But we want to make sure that that central IP is established before we make that move. But yes, that would be post IP generation.
Thank you.
Taylor, sorry, Phil. Taylor, it's Richard Hebden here. Apologies for my late joining. I might have missed the intros, but I did catch all of your pitch, which was very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I just ask you to flip back to the IP slide? I have a question about that, please.
Rob, if you click on the bridge again. Which slide are you referring to? Oh.
It was slide. Sorry, I haven't got it open in front of me. You have one with an IP timeline.
Yes. So there
That's
we
it.
go.
That's it.
Thank
Launch
you,
strategy. Yes, fantastic. Thank you. So I just having reviewed the aptamers innovation space some years ago in a previous role. I mean, it's, well, not surprisingly, quite a crowded space these days. What gives you confidence you'll get something granted in this space?
Right, quick this question, please, Taylor.
Sure.
I'm happy to take this one, Taylor. As
please.
Within our team, we did we did our best in terms of exploring the IP and the prior arts field from our previous experiences. And you're right, it was quite crowded. And I think especially one thing that was clear looking at our direct competitors in the aptamer services, priority, most of them seem to be focusing on the design and the synthesis, the production of these aptamers themselves. The next step into actually boosting their efficacy, to actually making them the clinically functional aptamers, hasn't yet quite been as explored into as depth as we believe could be the case. So securing this kind of bridge IP would be the first step to then secure us as kind of the cornerstone in this market, in which then in 5-10 years time, as these aptamer companies come to the front with their monovalent aptamers, we can then take them forward into the clinic with this efficacy.
That's it. Thank you, Charlene. I think we're out of time, so we should probably move on to the next presentation, but thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you,
it.
everyone.
Thank you.
For joining us for this team. The next team basically is drug bands. On behalf of the team, we have Dipa and Kieran, and we would like to invite them on the stage basically to deliver their pitch. Thank you so much.
Hi, thanks, Ricardo. I'm Dipa, and I'm representing Drug Bands, where we're building a platform to accelerate the clinical development of drugs for rare diseases. Next slide, please. Rare diseases, though, are they really as rare? Currently, there are 400 million people worldwide afflicted with rare diseases, a number that is greater than the population of the United States. In Asia, this represents a $32 billion market opportunity. Importantly, over 90% of these rare diseases lack an approved treatment, highlighting a huge unmet need. Next slide, please. This is mainly because drug development is a long and expensive process, a problem that is exacerbated for rare diseases. As you can see here, the clinical development alone takes 6 to 8 years, and this is our focus at Drug Bands. We will double the speed and half the cost for clinical trials using our platform built with multi-omics data and deep learning approaches. Next slide, please. So how will we do this? Conventionally, clinical trials have patients enroll both in the control arm and the treatment arm. We will eliminate the need for the control arm by building synthetic control arms, which will ensure that no additional patients need to be recruited. Using historical data, omics data, as well as machine learning approaches, we would essentially make a digital twin for each patient enrolled in the trial to model their clinical characteristics. In the future, we plan to add a supplementary treatment arm, basically to supplement data from real patients in treatment to model virtual patients and therapy response. Next slide, please. Currently, we're the only company focused on clinical trial acceleration for rare diseases in Asia. Our core innovation includes an Asian population-based knowledge graph. And together with our powerful algorithms, we believe this would help us accelerate trials, both by reducing cost and time, ensuring that we meet our primary goals. Next slide, please. We envision a 3-phase go-to-market and strategy and business model for Drug Bands. As you can see, in phase 1, we would validate our platform for a single indication. Phase 2 would be co-creation, where we would validate the extensibility of our platform to other adjacent indications, and we would have milestone-based payments. Phase 3 would be full platformatization, where we provide clinical trial acceleration as a service. Next slide, please. So in line with this, our first milestone would be to develop our database using our algorithms. Next. Next, yes. So we would engage with academic partners and early stage startups to access repurposed drug assets and unused IP. Next. This would help us validate our platform using real world data. And we've already initiated some of these discussions locally. Next. By mid-2022, we envision to have the first accelerated trial for our first asset. Next slide. As you can see, between us as a team, we have vast experience across diverse areas such as biology, machine learning, and finance to see this really challenging project through. Next slide. We really believe that life-saving drugs and treatments should be fundamental rights and not a privilege. If you believe in the same vision, we would be delighted to partner with you. We're seeking a seed funding of $250K to complement our sustainable financing model, which we'll be happy to discuss about in the Q&A. I'll stop here, and Kieran and I would be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dipa. With this, we would like to open the Q&A session. We invite all the judges to join us. Yeah.
Thank you, Dipa. That was an excellent and very articulate presentation. So my main question is on the regulatory side of things. How are you going to convince regulatory bodies that your synthetic control arm is a good enough control, really, compared to patients.
Excellent. Kieran, do you want to take it, or should I?
Yeah, and I can take it and you can add. Yeah, I think one, there is a good, clear regulatory precedent to this. Roche and Amgen have both used synthetic control arms to get approval for that. So that is one thing that we are relying upon as well. And second is we will only pick the standard of care that are already approved and known targets. So that is kind of good as well. And third is that we may not, if you see the first phase wherein we'll try to accelerate our own asset, we will not just be relying upon retrospective data, which is very important. That's how we'll validate our platform, but we'll also generate some live data from our clinical platform, which could potentially convince them. And we may not go completely, our first acceleration won't necessarily be, we'll eliminate the control arm completely. Maybe we'll eliminate it 80% when we'll still have 20% of it. So that is kind of something we plan to follow. Dipa, please add on if you have anything.
Perfect, that's all. So all the currently approved synthetic control arms are built with a very naive version. So our platform basically adds on to it and brings more strength. So we anticipate that we could get approvals because there's a regulatory precedent. Yeah, thanks.
Deepa, this is Phil. Nice presentation. Thank you. I think, in my opinion, you've identified a real need and a potential solution in part to that need. My question is, given you want to operate in rare diseases, what are the data sources you've identified to build Geromics platform? Because even in some of the common diseases, shall I say, data sources are limited.
Fantastic question. I think I'll just start with the answer. Exactly. So rare diseases are always hard to target, and this is what has disincentivized people from trying. We're looking to partner with agencies like Human Cell Atlas, which are really doing a lot of work in Asia to identify these underrepresented populations. So that would be one of our sources. We've also spoken with collaborators within Singapore and Japan, Korea, who are working in these regions like the genomic institutes, and those would be our main partners. So those would be our sources of the genomic, transcriptomic, proteomic, multimodal data. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Deepa. It's Neil Mottram here. I'd like to add the compliments to the rest of my jury panel. Very interesting presentation, and Lord knows, accelerating phase clinical trials is something that's rather topical right now. You want to build a digital twin and analyze the data from that using AI. And that requires not only the data sources that Phil just asked about, but also, because you've got the AI, you need to have a truth data set in which to compare it to. Given you're looking at lots of different rare diseases, how will you obtain that truth data by which to baseline your AI algorithms against?
Yeah, thank you, Neil. Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So one thing we kind of want to do is, while building our platform itself, we plan to kind of take the data of the clinical trials that have already happened and test our platform rigorously with it as well. And on the second part, as a truth, when we are actually conducting the live trial as well, along with the data that is coming out of the clinical trial, we also plan to use real-world evidence of the patients in the treatment arm, whether it is through the digital health platforms, etc., to collect the data as well to supplement it. So rigorously test it, and then kind of while we are deploying the digital twin in the live clinical trial as well, rely upon the real-world evidence data to supplement it. So those are the two things that kind of we are going after. And the second thing is, even while building our algorithms, we are trying to come up with a probability metric. Okay, this is 80% sure that the digital twin is actually a digital twin, but this is maybe 90% sure, this is 60% sure. So that we can kind of have a whole map of it. That is something that we are working on.
Great, thank you.
I don't know if anyone has any other questions. If not, I think we're nearing close to time. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Dragont. That was excellent.
If I can add just one point, we also have a drug asset-backed securities model to potentially solve the sustainable financing aspect as well, but that's out in the future. That is just something I wanted to add as well. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kieran.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Drugmans. The next team is called Hiltmo. And for that, we invite Ana Isabel Castillo and Isabel Chang to join us for this session. Thank you so much. All yours.
Hi, we are Hiltmo, and our unique solution tackles the problem: how can we change the way remote communities get access to high quality drugs? Next. 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 So a present challenge in remote areas in developing countries such as Uganda is the poor accessibility to health facilities due to transport constraints and long waiting hours, especially the 1.5 million HIV patients who need to travel hours on a monthly basis to get treatment. Next. Hiltmo, next, yes. Hiltmo wants to bring the treatment closer to the patient, creating a self-service pharmacy kiosk. Next. Our prototype design shows some of the key components such as resupply, drug delivery, and a 3-factor authentication system. Next. Next. The kiosk will be safely placed and patients will receive a Hiltmo ID with their prescriptions and a unique barcode generated via the Hiltmo app, as you can see. Next. This app allows you to locate the closest kiosk to you and lets you book a pickup slot to avoid queues. Next. Next. Patients need to initially go patient needs to initially go once to the hospital and get the once to get their prescriptions. They once registered, follow-up prescriptions can be managed through the app. The drug supply to our kiosk will be in close coordination with the Uganda healthcare system and government, where drugs are distributed from national and district warehouses to hospital and pharmacies. So we aim to support remote communities in contrast to its competitors, which are based in developed countries, such as the US and Europe. Hiltmo will be focused on antiretroviral drugs and aim to offer 24/7 access. Next. The market opportunity is highly attractive, with $28.6 billion spent in the African pharmaceutical industry. Uganda alone spent $460 million on HIV treatment. Next. In our current phase 1, we are conducting market analysis and prototype development. On phase 2, we will validate the process and adaptation. On phase 3, we will be extending the services to other regions. And finally, we will try to address other medical conditions and to pilot the system in other countries. Next. We are currently working to refine our supply chain and reimbursement system and conducting interviews with potential partners. Next. The people behind Hiltmo are myself, Ana, and co-founder Isabel. The idea was initiated at the beginning of this year with these amazing people. Next. Today, we are looking forward for investment opportunities to accelerate our phase 1. So partner with us if you are an NGO, pharmacy, clinic, or drug manufacturer, or simply join our team to bring health to everyone. Next. So we are happy to take your questions. We are very happy to be here with you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ana. So my question is around how do you ensure that there's no error in dispensing the drugs? Because presumably now there'll be a chance to introduce error when the person is loading up your kiosk or in the supply chains and operations. And I know that if you sort of go to the pharmacy today, the pharmacist checks very carefully that you've got the right drugs. And have you thought about any technologies that might help with that?
Yes. Basically with that, we would try to, that would be like a key for the Uganda system, because we would like to partner with the Uganda government. So I think we will, with that kind of system, we would try to see which are to adapt the costs and that to to make the suitability for this the cost, and to see how can we supply or how can we fill our kiosk. And so that will be a good option to avoid any errors because of the cost of drugs. So I think it would depend of the region and of course of the Uganda restrictions and that. So we were thinking that could be like an option, like basically very focused on the region, Uganda's region.
Maybe I can just quickly add something to that. So I think we are at the very beginning of the prototype development, and we are also looking for engineers and people in more the drug dispensing technology area to help. I think because at the beginning we are focusing on the antiretroviral drugs, which is usually just one pill or a combination of 3 pills. So I think at the beginning we won't have basically a variety of drugs which will be dispensed. And I think our system will be connected to, of course, to our basically headquarters, which will hopefully be made of different technical support people.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Nice presentation. My question is about your business model. Is your business the kiosk, or is your business the digital end of it? In your slides, there are competitors who are in this sort of technology, but in other markets. Can you access the kiosks and then focus your business on, as I say, the digital?
Yeah, I think it's both, because it's working with both the app and the kiosk. So basically, once like we want to avoid like visits to the hospitals and long hours for waiting to get to. So once they have like access to the app, they can generate a unique ID or a barcode and a digital ID. And with this digital ID, they can go to the kiosk, and with the 3 factors authentication system, because since we are dealing with remote areas, so we need like to the kiosk need to be like safely locked, and only like people can only get the drug if they have like if they have access like through these identification. So the kiosk will be working together with the app. So they will you will need both to for example, for a person to be able to get the drug from the kiosk. So it's like dependent to one another because they are working together.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Anna, it's Richard. Nice presentation, thank you. Phil kind of stole my thunder a bit. He asked what I was going to ask about business model, but on the subject of security, it sounds like you've thought through some of the issues around kind of software and access security. I just wonder what safeguards will be in place against kind of more brute force attempts. Bear in mind, you could be placing high value materials in low resource settings and making them available 24/7. What safeguards could be in place to prevent more brute force approaches to accessing the goods?
Yeah, we were planning like to have like the kiosk will be like a monitoring track and also satellite device, like to and also it will be provided by a lock system. And of course, it will for our pilot, I think we were thinking to start in a bigger city, so we are not very because we want to see how this the kiosk adapts to this basically because it's like difficult as you see in remote areas. It's like prone to have like this that the kiosk can be damaged or can be trying to be broken down. So that's how so first we would try with a bigger city in Uganda and to see like how it behaves and how can we improve the way of security. So yes, we are planning to this is the part of our phase 1, but instead we're planning to have this kiosk be filled with a lock system that can enable to protect the drugs that are inside of the kiosk.
Brilliant, thank you very much. I think we're out of time now, so should we? I think there's a block of audience voting now. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to the 3 teams that have participated now. With this, basically, we would like to invite you all. We will have a small short break. And in the meantime, we are going to use this time to have this audience voting. So if you please go to the portal, within your portal in the part below, where the Q&A tab is, just besides it, there's a polling tab. If you go to that one, you will find the 3 teams that have just participated right now. Please submit your responses, basically evaluating them from 1 to 10 according to your preferences and your impressions. And after that, we would like to reconvene in some minutes, 5 minutes back, if that's okay for everyone. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you very much, everyone, for your votes. With this, we would like to close the poll, and we would like to pass to the second block of this competition. In this block, we're going to have the pitches from Intelligo, Connect IP, and Babi. We would like to invite for the next team, Intelligo. Next, please. On behalf of Intelligo, we have Meros and Jacopo representing the team. And with this, we would like to invite you to the stage, please.
Great, thank you. Could we start, please? Next slide, please. Hello, everyone. My name is Meros, and I'm here to present IntelliStroke by Intelligo. Next slide. By the time we finish pitching, approximately 32 people will have died from stroke, and 64 more will be fighting for their lives. Next slide. A person loses 2 million nerve cells every minute without medical treatment during a stroke. Getting to the hospital early can be a lifesaver. The problem we are addressing is that in many stroke patients, symptoms are not recognized in time, which leads to irreversible damage, leading not only to increased mortality and deficits, but also a huge burden on the economy. Next slide. We present a software as a service solution that will allow patients to recognize stroke symptoms using data from existing variables. So how does this work? We monitor vital signs from patients, and on triggers such as low oxygen saturation and sudden falls, we send an automated call to the patient. This examines their speech against an already given sample. If a stroke is detected, we will alert the patient, their caretakers, and their healthcare team, enabling swift action to be taken, and cut short the time between onset and treatment. As time is brain, implementing IntelliStroke would increase chances of survival, preserve brain function, and restore social function of future stroke patients, all while reducing the significant costs that currently burden the healthcare system. Next slide. Stroke is the second leading cause of death worldwide. The stroke market is expected to grow to $45 billion in the next 5 years. This is due to the increase in aging population, increase in incidence of cardiovascular disease. Further, we expect increased implementation of remote monitoring solutions, which would help drive adoption of our solution. Next slide. Sorry. Next slide. So our SaaS platform will be sold on a business-to-business model where doctors will prescribe the remote monitoring device to patients at high risk of stroke. The cost will be covered by the insurance provider. We will be adopting a value-based payment model for the monitoring fee, where insurers will pay a basic monitoring fee and an added fee for every stroke incident that is identified by our platform. Next slide. There are plenty of opportunities in this market, with recent reports suggesting that 1 in 4 people will be affected by stroke in their lifetime. Worldwide, there are 80 million stroke survivors, with more than 80,000 stroke patients over the age of 65 in UK. And this represents our early market. So we'll pilot and initially be targeting the high risk population, which are previous stroke patients, atrial fibrillation, or having diabetes. Next slide. In terms of timeline, we're seeking a seed investment following GapSummit and expect to be in the market by Q4 2021. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, sorry. Yeah. IntelliStroke is brought to you by a team of scientists and engineers from 6 different nationalities. On top of that, we have experience in pharmaceutical industry and biotech startups. Next slide. We also have a medtech startup veteran, David Hampton, on our team, who has been guiding us throughout the process. Next slide. We have the idea, we have the team. All we need now is your support. Invest in us to help hundreds of millions in the future. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. That was an excellent presentation. So my opening question is regarding the underlying technology that's going to go into your product. So for sort of measuring oxygen saturation, I know that there's some kit in the latest Apple Watch, so I can see how that can happen. But I'm interested how do you plan to detect speech anomalies?
So definitely. So I think one of the major things that we've thought about is that initially we were thinking of having an app where a person speaks about it. But usually our target audience is elderly or people with any disabilities. So that's why we initiate a call, which is sent to the patient's phone. And so when they speak a general through questions and answers with that automated call, we will already have a initial voice recording from them with the same answers, and we'll compare both of them to see if there's slurred speech or if they're not able to say certain words.
I see. Thank you.
You mentioned, Memories, that your platform is software as a service, so you're having to take data from numerous different bits of hardware and decipher the relevant insight from that. There's a significant data interoperability challenge there. The software protocol on an Apple iWatch is completely different to a Fitbit, it's completely different to a Nike Fuel Band, etc. How do you plan to try and overcome that interoperability challenge?
It seems connection might have been disrupted. We invite Jacopo. Yeah, thank you.
His connection might have dropped. So the idea was to start from one brand of, say, smartwatches, and then expand to others, because we were currently aware of this issue with interoperability, and also, you know, making sure that all these companies are compliant to the way that we manage their data.
Sorry about that. Yeah, sorry, like I think just to add to it, it's that we've already figured out that we can use APIs to integrate some of them. And considering the things that we do need, there's a few variables that we will be employing. So we've already, as you mentioned, the Apple wearable has the oxygen saturation, but we also in contact with another wearable supplier that we can do during our initial phases of doing an initial pilot study to collect that data.
Given the parameters that you're going to measure, what's your knowledge of the false positive rate, and how will you overcome that?
So thank you for that question. I think definitely. So I think the recent study by Apple, there's a news circulating as well that Apple is sending more patients to the hospital because of their heart rate variability issues. So there are a lot of false positives. And that's why we use not just one parameter, we have a couple of different parameters. So if you're looking at oxygen saturation, we'll be collecting the vital signs from the wearable as well, which is heart rate variability and heart rate. And then in addition, we do confirm it with the call made to the patient. So the speech analysis combined together, all these three will reduce the false positives that there are.
Thank you.
One follow-up question. Do you view this software as a service as a medically regulated device, so to speak? Are you going to be giving recommendations? And if so, what consideration have you given to that approvals process?
So we were looking at the regulatory landscape for this, and specifically looking at the FDA, as the US market is the one that we would start from. And we would probably be classed as a class 1 medical device, as the risk to it is very low. And, you know, false positive is just a call to the guardian that doesn't go through to a hospitalization. So yes, it would be probably a class 1 medical device that does not need pre-market medical approval, but we would need to abide by some general controls imposed by the FDA, like reporting adverse events.
Is there any further questions for the team? No, fantastic. Sorry, Richard, did you want to ask a question then?
Yeah, sorry, it was just one, just up in there. Great presentation, guys. Just a quick one in terms of the data gathering technology you looked at. Had you also thought about haptic interface feedback as well for gathering data on neurological impairment?
So I think at this present moment, we haven't. I think we were trying to keep it as simple as possible. I think especially considering the fact that most of our population will be the elderly. And that's why I think there's a number of apps in the market that ask you to go on the app, say something. And that's why we integrated the solution where we'll call the patient and just like simplify the whole process for them. And I think that's where like have the minimum number of variables that we have, and then simplifying the process themselves for the patients. So maybe that's something that we look on as we expand into the market and the number of patients that we do see. But at this moment in time, that's our focus.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, everyone.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
To Intelligo team. And with this, we would like to go to the next team, which is Connect IP. On behalf of the team, we have Abhinav and Fahim, who are going to be, and well, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricardo. Hi. At Connect IP, we empower you to discover solutions. Next slide, please. The rate of invention and the amount of licensable technology in our society is at an all-time high. Yet, the rate of licensing is still capped at 5%. This means there remains an untapped potential of almost 95% of licensable technology that in the hands of the right person can bring value to the society. Let me tell you how. Next slide, please. Fahim on our team is a pharmacist. Now, like us, he's a technical expert in his field that gives him the knowledge of problems that matter. And like us, he also has a desire to solve these problems. Next slide, please. Now, he did a startup competition where 100 patents from his field were simplified, collated, and provided to him. The simplified information enabled Fahim to find the solution to a very specific problem where he knew the demand existed. Next slide, please. Every day, we ourselves undergo a lot of different problems where we understand the demand exists. But what we often do not realize is that the solution to these problems also exists. What if I was to give you a list of solutions, just like Fahim was given his list of solutions? We believe that if the right person saw the right information more often, more problems would be solved in this world. And this is exactly what we do at Connect IP. Next slide, please. We performed extensive customer discovery interviews across different stakeholders in the field of IP. It included 20 stakeholders, and we included SMEs, entrepreneurs, inventors, and large firms like Novartis and big TTOs like MIT. And they all validated the demand for simplified content. Next slide, please. These interviews, along with a competitive landscape analysis, led to the development of Curate, a proprietary curation tool, which generates simplified content at scale. And this is something our competitors lack. Next slide, please. Our skilled curators use Curate to simplify patents from a highly complicated scientific and legal document into a simpler document where the true value of the technology is communicated without diminishing the science behind it. This information is then displayed on a front end, which will evolve into an IP marketplace in the future to enable transactions between IP owners and IP seekers. Next slide, please. We'll generate revenue in the short term through an advertisement-based model where we'll charge IP owners. And here we'll target smaller clients like SMEs, entrepreneurs, scale-ups, and startups. Next slide, please. In the long run, we'll charge a small fee where every license or sale deal is executed on the platform. And here we'll charge larger firms. Next slide, please. We are very serious about taking this project forward, and we have already planned a proof of concept study with clients in Q4 of 2020. Next, please. We've already recruited 2 external engineers, not a part of GapSummit, to develop the platform, and 2 further advisors to support us in our next steps. Next slide, please. So at GapSummit, we want all mentors and panelists to help us get in touch with your network, and we invite all of you leaders of tomorrow to come on board and help us test our prototype. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's an excellent presentation and a very innovative idea. So I had a question. There must be, I don't know if you have a sense of how many patents there are out there. And then I presume sort of one of the initial limiting factors is going to be to get the summaries onto your platform. Do you have a strategy for how to go about that in a way that can build traction, or a sense of how much of the patent landscape you can penetrate?
Yeah, so I mean, most of the patents already exist in the public domain, and a large amount of these come from smaller scale companies such as SMEs. So our idea is that first to target a localized market around here in the UK, where we target ecosystems such as Cambridge or London, and we try to incorporate the clients over there that have unused IP that they're still sitting on and been paying maintenance costs, but they haven't been utilizing it. And then we want to put them forward in our IP front end. And then we want to go to the IP clients, IP seekers, such as bigger firms and VCs, accelerators, different kinds of organizations that look for IP. And then we want to say like, look, we have the simplified information that can enable you to efficiently sift through a large amount of information. And then from there, someone can figure out, okay, this is the IP we need.
A question, please, related to the iceberg. 95% of patents are underwater and unused, as you described them. Can you break that figure of 95% down for me? I'm sure there are patents there that come from technology push without a real market need, and for other reasons are not commercializable. What percentage really are there of unused that are not finding through communication a commercialization partner?
Thank you. So there is no distinction in terms of numbers, because our hypothesis is that patents in the eye of the right person gives it value. And we do understand that there's a lot of junk patents out there that are just created for the sake of creation and then are used. But then through our interviews, we also found that there's a lot of patents that are needing the right reference point in order to understand what is the utility behind it. And from our perspective, we want to increase the rate of licensing from 5% to at least 15 to 20%. And that already brings in a huge value to society. So we don't want to go to an ambitious goal of 80 to 90% commercialization, because that would be amazing. But we all know that a lot of patents are just there for defensive reasons, that they're just for the sake of making them. But then the smaller inventors like our mentor Adina, she has a lot of patents in her company that she doesn't use. And she's been paying costs, but she wants to get some return on investment on them. So for these, she's unable to get to a bigger client base because she doesn't have the resources for that. So we'll enable such companies to come and market to a wider audience so that they can be discovered. And we believe that we can increase the rate at least a bit more from what it exists to bring value to society. And this is where our proof of concept study should come in.
Great, thank you. And just a comment, if I may, I wondered as I was reviewing your presentation whether the folks in the AI drug discovery space, like Benevolent, Exscientia, Berg, have actually developed the algorithms to mine patents for their purposes. You want to do that for a different purpose, but I wondered if there's an opportunity to leverage some of the things that players like that have done. Just a comment or a suggestion for you if you haven't thought of it.
Thank you, that's great. We're also working on our own model to help match problems and solutions, but we'd love to get in touch with these people.
This is Neil Markstrom. I was particularly interested by your royalty revenue stream and how that comes from encouraging or the execution of M&A activities by your large blue chip clients. As part of that process, you almost need to quantify the value of the patent and obviously the companies that own that patent as part of that guidance for the M&A activity. How do you plan to be able to try and do that quantification? Because that's a challenge that many companies have faced before, and it's not one that many have overcome to date.
Yeah, I can provide some insight on that. So we have calculated how much it costs to maintain the patent. So our premise initially is not going to be on the value creation, but the cost that we save. So we're going to take a portion of the cost of maintaining the patent over the lifetime. Once we get more data and insight into what the value generation is from partnerships to our platform, in that case, we can make a case for how much we can charge from a royalty standpoint. The other approach that we can take is we can share the risk. So you don't have to pay us up front. We take the risk with you and we follow you through time. And as you make money, we make money. If you don't make money, we don't make any money.
Understood.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I think we're out of time on that, but thanks a lot, Connect IP.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Connect IP. We would like to transition to the next team, which is Bobby. On behalf of Bobby, we have Sophia and Orla, and we would like to invite you to the stage. Thank you so much.
The coronavirus. The coronavirus has perfectly highlighted the need for fast diagnostics on the identification of the virus. This will aid treatment decision-making and fast patient recovery. I am Sophia, one of the Bobby team members, and here I'm going to describe what innovative point-of-care device we are developing for upper respiratory tract infection testing. Next slide, please. 11.5 million visits in the Dutch general practice are due to upper respiratory tract infections, of which the most predominant ones are the ones displayed in this slide, both viruses and bacteria. However, identifying the pathogen is of pivotal importance to determine the correct treatment for fast patient recovery, especially, next slide please, if the correct treatment requires the administration of an antibiotic, which needs to be correct to avoid further increase of antimicrobial resistance, a topic broadly covered in our conference. Currently, this is a struggle for general practitioners who are treating based on symptoms and empirics, as the identification of the pathogen requires culturing and takes over 2 days to get the results. We want to help the general practitioner make the right decision on treatment using a novel technological tool we are developing, providing results within 30 minutes. Next slide, please. So how do we do that? We are developing a fast antibody-based technology that can identify simultaneously 3 commonly found viruses and 3 commonly found bacteria in the general practice. The antibody binding effects will give a unique colorimetric readout, which will translate to which pathogen or pathogens have been found. Unfortunately, I cannot get much in depth to this as we are still exploring its patentability. Next slide, please. Our technology is a simple, easy to use platform that can fit in the general practitioner's office and can detect multiple pathogens at the same time. We expect to obtain results comparable to the golden standard, which is the culture, but in a significant reduced time frame, from over 2 days to 30 minutes. Next slide, please. Of course, we are not the first to develop something like this, but we are faster and we are more accurate, and we have competitive advantages as per criteria important to the general practitioner. Next slide, please. There is a long road ahead, but we have a promising start. We have identified an investment need to validate our idea, and that is 335,000 euros. And we will go from year 0 to 2026 to dominate 15% of the GP market needs. We can discuss this later on. Next slide, please. Who are we? We are a team of 5 young scientists who met through the GapSummit. However, we are surrounded by advisors that cover a broad range of disciplines necessary to achieving this. We also feel safe at the GapSummit community, knowing that we have a great mentorship such as Tony Kulesa has been. With that, I would like to conclude, and I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sophia. So my question is regarding the competitive landscape. So you touched on that it's a competitive space, and I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit more in detail about how you think you compete with some of the big players like Roche and Abbott that have very cheap, very quick diagnostics that are entering the market almost spurred on by COVID-19, and how you think you'll be able to compete with that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the question. So indeed, there are some really strong competitors out there. They have those disadvantages, like for example, they are focusing only on specific viruses or only on specific bacteria. We are combining them both. Now, as per the fast analysis, some of them have low sensitivity or specificity, which of course has been an offset, a trade-off for either fast or low sensitivity and specificity. Now we want to combine these both, and we believe we have found a really elegant technological tool that can actually do that.
Thank you.
Hi, Sophia. It's Richard Hebden. Thank you. Very, very nice pitch. A subject close to my heart, infectious diseases. Very, very interesting. Yes, and very timely. Can I ask on what basis do you claim a 30-minute detection time? How have you validated or provide proof of concept data for that?
Thank you very much for the question. So what I consider remarkable today is that we came up with the technology during the GapSummit. So we have not validated it ourselves. However, we have done an extensive literature research, so we are sure that this is going to work. And we have also discussed this with professors that have also validated that this can be done. Now, speaking of which, my PhD, I'm finishing my PhD right now. I worked on an antibody-based assay myself, which was for HIV detection. And that assay was it could provide results within 40 minutes. And as part of my PhD, I optimized it to reduce it to a clinically relevant time frame, which has been 10 minutes. These results will soon be published on PNAS. So having these in mind, we are certain that this is going to work.
Okay, but I admire your confidence. I look forward to seeing the results. Just as a comment from us, I mean, we fund quite a lot of projects in diagnostic innovation, particularly infectious disease, and particularly at the moment with COVID-19, that there is a crowded landscape. I mean, one of the kind of slight trends we have noticed is that often getting the approval and the validation for the assay itself, the kind of the wet parts of the innovation are easier than the device, and particularly getting CE marking is often a much longer journey. But no, very exciting. Look forward to hearing more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Sophia, it's Neil Mottram here. Very interested in this, and if I read it correctly, this is point of care in the GP surgery. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
So you're looking at pretty significant volumes of devices that you need to make and deploy for this, and there's always the argument about kind of decentralized versus centralized models when it comes to diagnostics. Appreciate that you said this is a fairly new idea, so you might not have an answer to this question, but given it's something that's going to be in a GP surgery, what analysis have you done as to the cost of this machine? What's kind of the upper bound as to how much is realistic to charge for this so that you get the right balance between that distributed model as opposed to the centralized one and the different costs that sit within those two models?
Yes, thank you very much for the question. So the current standard, the golden standard, is culturing. In the Dutch landscape, culturing costs 80 to 120 euros, and it's obligatory to risk groups, for example, the elderly or people with underlying health conditions. Now, this means that the healthcare insurance is paying this much. Now, we believe that healthcare insurances are going to be by our side to this, as they are going to reduce their costs. Whatever competitive we can do to this as per the cost, it will be interesting. Nevertheless, we are targeting GPs and they'd rather go cheap on this, and that's true. We have a golden example, which is CRP testing, which has been decentralized, and the CRP testing costs 13 euros. So we know that if we want to target a broader audience, so all patient groups, and that could be similar pricing, so 13 euros that would be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sophia, how will you detect presence of pathogen from live pathogen? Or distinguish, rather?
You mean the technology?
Yes, with the assay, will you be able to distinguish live pathogen from just presence of pathogen?
So you're absolutely right to this. There is going to be an issue, especially if we don't know if it's a pathogen, if the bacteria or the virus, the bacteria that we're looking at is indeed a pathogen or is just there, just living its life, not harming anyone. That is going to be an issue. We have not yet identified how we are going to do that. To the best of my knowledge, we don't have technologies that can identify the differences between the two. We know for sure we can do the virus, and we expect to have a bit lower specificity just because of this, because of the presence of other bacteria in the sample.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for an excellent presentation. I think we are approaching the second break now. Is that right?
Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone. Well, special acknowledgement to Intelligo, Connect IP, and Bavi for the pitches. For now, we are going to be opening the second block for the audience voting. So please, if you could go again to your polling system in the conference platform, and we will be reconvening in 5 minutes for the next and last block of pitches. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, everyone. We would like to continue to the next block. With this, we are going to be closing the audience voting in the section 2. The block 3 comprises the pitches from Insulink, Aquadex, and Insura. With this, we would like to invite the team members of Insulink, who are Umar and Iman. So please, could you join us at the stage, please?
Sure. Thanks, Ricardo. Hi. Insulink is a venture that seeks to tackle the serious health challenge of diabetes in Nigeria. Next. Diabetes is the fastest growing disease globally. And by 2045, there will be more diabetics in the world than the current population of Europe. While the focus of diabetes therapy has largely been on the West, this terrible disease has sunk its teeth to the developing world, including Nigeria, where its prevalence has tripled in the past 30 years. Today, 1 in 17 Nigerians suffer from this disease. Next. I am Umar Adegoke, physician from Nigeria, and this is one of my patients, not his real name though. You may not have realized this, but Thomas is the new face of diabetes. He's a type 1 diabetic, which means he needs insulin to survive. In Nigeria, however, more than 60% of insulin-dependent diabetics like Thomas cannot access the insulin that they need. Next. Insulin access is a huge challenge in Nigeria. The insulin currently available is quite expensive, costing around 1/3 of monthly minimum income. It also requires refrigeration during storage and transportation, which means that regions that lack a cold chain infrastructure cannot facilitate this. Lastly, it relies on needle for its administration, which in Africa carries significant stigma and associated health risks. Because Thomas cannot access the insulin that he needs, his life is 15 years shorter and a whole lot harder. Next, patients like Thomas urgently need an alternative insulin, one that is not only affordable, but can ideally be stored at room temperature and also can be taken without the need of a needle. Insulink has found that solution, and to make it, we are going green. Next. Traditionally, insulin is manufactured in expensive and highly controlled laboratories using bacteria. What we would do instead is produce insulin inside transgenic lettuce. This would afford us the ability to produce it at only a fraction of its current cost. And this insulin would also be temperature stable, precluding any cold chain requirements. And because we are growing in lettuce, it would also be bioencapsulated, which means that it can be taken as an oral pill. To make this, we have partnered with a local hydroponics vertical farm in Nigeria to overcome the impact of environmental stresses and contamination during production. We will be growing our lettuce hydroponically in enclosed and highly controlled vertical farms. Gardner Callaway, who is our agricultural partner, is an ideal partner for us because they understand the problem and they share in our vision. And this picture here is one of their farms in Lagos, Nigeria. Next. Insulink is driven by a multifaceted, multi-skilled, multinational team across 3 continents. Next. We are sowing the seeds of change in the treatment of insulin-dependent diabetes in Nigeria and in the developing world. And today, we are here looking for funding to validate a pilot study of 4,000 heads of lettuce with our partner, agricultural partner, Gardner Callaway. And we're also looking for partnerships necessary for scaling. Diabetes is one of the biggest health challenges in the world right now, and with your help, we can rewrite a new chapter and impact positively the lives of patients like Thomas scattered across Nigeria, Africa, and the rest of the developing world. Thank you. Next slide.
Thank you very much, Umar. That was a great presentation and very compelling. My question is around, I think there have been some previous attempts at having oral insulin, but they haven't got through clinical trials. And I'd just be interested to know how you think that Insulink will be able to overcome those challenges and get a stable product that can be delivered orally.
Oh yeah, you go, Umar. You go.
Iman, you go. You go.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the ways we're looking at that is through we are evaluating. So we're not limiting our sort of IP scope. So we're looking to harness existing IP out there. One of the IP targets that we're looking at is a professor out of the University of Pennsylvania. He is very enthusiastic about working with us. However, due to the COVID pandemic, he's sort of unfortunately tapered off a bit. But we're looking to work with him, and he is looking to commercialize some of his new, more recent and more refined patents. Now, this wouldn't be a conflict of interest for him because he's patented those in the sort of North American, European, and UK markets, and therefore those don't extend to Africa, which is where we're looking to operate.
Thank you.
Hi, hi, Eamon. Great presentation, thank you. I have a question around how you intend to go about processing lettuce material to extract your high value insulin protein. From a number of projects I've seen over the years where people are trying to make high molecular weight products in particular things like transgenic tobacco and potato plants, what's turned out to be an extremely non-trivial problem has been the extraction of the protein from leaf material and being able to do it at scale in particular. Have you given any thought to that or technologies you might employ to facilitate that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's probably one of the main sort of things we've had to think about because sort of the traditional ways for quantifying insulin is through a standard sort of ELISA. But through producing it in transgenic lettuce, the advantage is that it becomes bioencapsulated. So that means that it can evade sort of enzymatic degradation in the stomach and where the gut microbes can break it down. Now, if we take the insulin outside of that, it would be rapidly degraded as an oral therapy. And so what we want to do is be able to quantify it within the leaf. And so we've read quite heavily around this, as well as engaged with some people that have sort of leading the research around this. And we think that through using mass spec and FTIR, they're two of the initial targets where we can quantify it in the leaf. Now, I will say, these are not technically approved analytical methods at the moment, but we are speaking to the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration in Nigeria, which is the Nigerian FDA, about applying for that concurrently with our initial studies, so that once they sort of prove efficacy, we can use that quantification technique and take advantage of that bioencapsulation.
Thank you.
Hi guys, it's Neil Mottram. Very interesting concept, and I'll fully admit I don't know the full ins and outs around insulin regulation and the extraction process from transgenics, but it certainly sounds like the rest of my panel do. One thing I do know a little bit about is vertical farming and the growing environment. If you're starting to produce something that's essentially pharmaceutical, what parallels have you looked at with colleagues who are trying to do the same for producing the likes of CBD oil and so on in controlled agriculture and controlled environments? And the reason I ask that is you need to try and get towards almost a sterile growing environment before your product becomes approved for this kind of use. What investigations have you done into that side of the proposition?
Yeah, so initially we sort of spoke more broadly. So I'm based in Australia, and I spoke more broadly to some sort of the ag biotech people here involved in vertical farming. They said like there would be sort of more costs involved with that. But for us, we see that as sort of a bit of a later question because our first sort of method or process would be around making the seeds and then optimizing the method of vertical hydroponic farming. And so once we sort of optimize that, we can get a bit better idea of how we can produce this in a more scalable fashion and under sort of sterile conditions. Yeah.
Brilliant. Unless anyone has any other questions, I think we're out of time. So thank you very much, Interlink.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Insulin, for the pitch. The next team would be Aquadex. On behalf of the team, we have Nursatil and Chona, and we invite them to join us at the stage. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Ricardo. Hello all, I'm Nursatil, introducing Aquadex. We are developing a new innovative mobile monitoring system for the fisheries industry. Next. Seafood is a source of nourishment and enjoyment. The rising demand for seafood pushes this species to the brink of extinction. Next. Under current situation, can fisheries become sustainable? We have seen catch dumping, overfishing, illegal fishing, and bycatch on endangered species that cause fish stocks continue to decline to dangerous levels. Next. So to solve these problems, we need to reach a balance between preserving the environment and ensuring industry uptake of new technology. Next. Aquadex proposes utilizing machine vision and IoT technology that will contribute to smart fisheries management, optimize the supply chain by reducing wastage, achieve sustainable fishing practices, and stimulate industry standards relating to fisheries management and monitoring. Next. The Aquadex system works by having catch hauled onto the large-scale fishing vessels and then automatically run through a machine vision scanner. Using algorithm and integration to a web-based API, live data such as the catch volume by species and quality can then be forwarded down the supply chain to allow for real-time reporting to users on sea and on land. Next. Aquadex system is the global solution for large-scale ocean monitoring in wide geographical regions, particularly in marine protected areas. Next. The market for Aquadex is promising. The world population is expected to hit 9 billion by 2050, which also means that the global food production will also increase. So our target is Southeast Asia, which is a primary supplier in the fisheries industry. So each Southeast Asia country has different challenges to sustainable fisheries. Aquadex can address all of this. Next. Aquadex is currently in the development phase. We plan to complete 3 milestones: algorithm development, prototype development, and prototype testing in 24 months. For long-term vision, we have extensive plans for technology buy-in and business expansion. Next. Unlike other competitors, Aquadex allows multiple species identification and provides live update on total catches. Our competitive advantage is that we offer a safe and trusted system that saves time and labor savvy and empowers users and connects them to bigger markets. Next. So how do we make money out of this? For Aquadex, we are planning to charge fishing vessels, seafood companies, and large fish markets with a monthly or yearly commitment for them to be able to access our data, network, and system. For our second business model, we also have a plan to form partnerships with NGOs and authorities in food industry to develop sustainable fisheries label. So in return, Aquadex provides automated supply chain management for easy connection to large buyers. With our plan to develop the sustainable brand label, this will increase positive market perception. So these business models are still developing and will evolve as we get feedback from users and stakeholders. Next. Aquadex is composed of a balanced team. We have Brad, Shona, Leila, Joe, and myself, Zatil, who are all passionate about machine vision and IoT as the next generation sustainable fishing technology. Next. We all know that sustainable fisheries are important, so please help us raise 50,000 to develop a minimum viable product of Aquadex. With that, thank you very much.
Very much for that great presentation. It would be useful to know a little bit about how much kit do you need to make this a reality, and how much do you think the kit would cost?
Shona, you would have answer to that?
Yes, please. Thank you so much. So initially, we requested about £50,000 for our initial funding. And if we can go to our second supplementary slide, please. We have a quick breakdown there of our needs, which includes salaries at the rates of Southeast Asia.
I think I wasn't very clear in my question. I was more meaning for each individual product that you made with the cameras on.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I was more asking how much the hardware would cost that you'd have to put on each ship.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. So far, we're still at the development phase, but we're targeting to meet the cost of our closest competition, which is tuna scan, which is only limited to one species, and also doesn't have API technology, and their cost is around $30,000 US. So we're aiming to make it close to that margin.
Thank you.
I have a question about your business model. Thank you for the presentation. The fact that our marine stocks are being overfished is a serious major problem. The recent BBC documentary with Sir David Attenborough highlighted that, and if anybody hasn't seen it, you should have a look at it. But I wanted to understand what problem you're actually trying to solve. The link between monitoring and, shall I say, overfishing or depletion of fish stocks was missing for me. Seems like we need at least a regulatory input in there as well to change behaviors.
Yes, we agree with that so much. And that's why we're planning to work with regulatory agencies at the onset so that they can advise us on their needs. But generally, I've been working with the fisheries industry for 12 years in the Philippines. And one of our major problems is that even though the laws exist, it's easy to avoid them considering how vast the oceans are. So when fishing vessels come back to the shore and they see that regulatory individuals, officers are available, what they do is they actually do catch dumping, which is a large waste of food. And that they do that to avoid being caught for overfishing. So with the use of Aquadex that connects with the information systems of our regulatory agencies, we can actually monitor their catch live, so as they catch it.
If I may just add a very simple points to what Shona's answer. In future, what we vision for Aquadex is also to have some functions integrated, like function alert, as well as the GIS system, to ensure that we have accurate data in terms of the total catches as well as the live location. If they may answer your if they may answer your question.
Great, thank you. That's a good answer. Thank you.
And if I may build on that, because I think it's very interesting that the example you give there of fishermen dumping catch in order to kind of meet regulation, that drives a question about user adoption for me on this. If this system is essentially the remote policeman on every single vessel, why would a fisherman decide to have it? And if it was forced upon them, what stops them from just smashing it up so that the long eye of the law isn't looking over their shoulder while they're doing their day job?
We actually have a two-factor approach for that. The first one is it can actually help improve their pathway to the market. Because of the API technologies we're implementing, it would be much, much easier for large-scale buyers to identify which fish species to buy and from which agencies to buy. And if we also look at the trends in the organic food market, individuals who, companies who practice sustainable farming can charge a premium for the services. And in the long run, we hope to put that sustainable certification in place for this one so that companies who make use of it can also earn more, especially considering fishermen are some of the lowest earning groups in the world. But the second factor here is that in order for fishing vessels to be allowed to fish, they also need to have renewable licenses. And what we plan to do is to work with regulatory agencies in such that users of Aquadex can have a discount or an easier pathway to renew their licenses so that they can continue to fish.
So I guess it's a mixed approach of the top-down and bottom-up approach. That's how we see it. Thank you.
Yeah, so there's a lot of supply chain transparency that kind of drives this from the consumption point back all the way to.
Yes.
Yep.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to Aquadex. With this, we would like to move to the next team and the last one of this blog and from the competition insurer. And for that, we invite Uzoma and Jason on behalf of the team to the stage, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Hello, Ricardo. We are Insura and we want to make health insurance easy. Let's meet Adewale. He's a 50-year-old garbage collector in Sokoto, Nigeria, diagnosed with chronic hypertension. One day he had chest pain and died after 2 days. What's the cause of death? Next slide. He died from complications of heart failure. Now, but that is not the big issue. The big issue is that for the family to retrieve the body for burial, they had to pay an expensive hospital bill and were pushed further into extreme poverty. Next slide. Adewale is just one out of 189 million Nigerians who pay out of pocket for healthcare expenditure in Nigerian population as well as in most emerging markets. Many of the population are uninsured. 94% of the Nigerian population are uninsured. We have just 4% covered by the National Health Insurance Scheme and 2% covered by the private healthcare insurance schemes. Next slide. Imagine saving the lives of 30 million Nigerians thrown into poverty due to illness. This is exactly what we intend to do with Insura. Next slide. So at Insura, we want to make health insurance easy. Now, this is the ultimate goal, but we are starting out as a healthcare insurance savings wallet. So we are an online insurtech platform. Essentially, the goal of what we intend to do is to enable people to save unconsciously for healthcare. Next slide. So this is the scenario. This is the average cost of giving birth in Nigeria. And then what we intend to do is that at every point, people in Nigeria recharge airtime every month. Many people recharge. It's run by a pay-as-you-go system. So for every single recharge, we intend to collaborate with the telecommunication companies to extract just a small amount of money, which is stored at the subscriber's healthcare insurance wallet. And then this amount saved up is drawn upon in any health emergency. Next slide. Okay, so what we do, which is our impact and novelty, is that we make healthcare insurance very easy by an unconscious accumulation of mobile health insurance wallet. We also intend to partner a transfer of health insurance credit to family members, relatives, and friends. Next slide. So these are our competitors. We intend to be very easy, and we also intend to make it very, very flexible and affordable. Next slide. So we intend to, in the first year, to target the metropolitan cities, then by year 3, the urban Nigeria, and then expand to the whole country by the 5th year. And we intend to do this by capturing at least about 5% of the market share by year 5. Next slide. So this is our plan for the first 1 year, which includes building our platform and then trying to gearing up for expansion and then trying to roll out this platform. Next slide. We are very sustainable. These are our the ways we intend to generate income. Next slide. Next slide. So we are run by a team of multidisciplinary professionals with a solid background in healthcare, as well as healthcare financing and business administration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was an excellent presentation. In terms of your go-to-market strategy, are you planning to be a independently financially regulated company? I think you sort of have to require cash on the balance sheet, etc., to be an insurance company, or are you planning to sort of offer your services as an add-on for other insurers?
Okay, so what we intend to do is to just be, we are starting out as a platform because of the cost it takes to actually register as an insurance company, and then every other thing in terms of paying out claims and everything, it would take a huge capital to start off as that. So we are starting off as just an insurtech platform, more like a savings platform for people. So we are an independent platform partnering with the telecommunication companies as well as with the hospitals to ensure free flow of mobile credits.
To add quickly, it would be an add-on, but it would be directed towards the mobile credit, the telecommunication platforms, not an add-on to an existing insurance company.
Insurance, yeah.
Building on that question, thank you for the presentation. Perhaps I missed it, but it seemed to me there's a gap in the amount that could be saved through the approach that you have put forward versus the cost of claims and the cost of care. And I wondered if you really do need an insurance underwriter, to Joanna's question, I think, to be able to bridge the gap?
Yeah, you're right, Phil. There may be a gap because the intention of Insura is not actually to pay out and to avoid out-of-pocket costs completely. The goal is really to somehow decrease the out-of-pocket costs, the catastrophic healthcare expenditure. So it's really more of a mobile savings wallet to somehow that they could be used for future needs. So the goal is to move into that sphere wherein there would be no out-of-pocket costs, but the initial lofty ideals is just really to decrease the potential out-of-pocket costs through unconscious savings whenever they load through their mobile credits.
Okay, thank you. By the way, I really like the option of being able to transfer the credit to relatives and friends. Well done.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Neil or Richard, I don't know if you have any further questions at all.
It's not an area that I have a huge amount of experience in, but I was fortunate enough years ago to be involved in a program called M-Pesa in Kenya and Tanzania.
Okay. In Kenya.
Microfinance program for mobile phone payment. Curious to know platforms like that, how you would plan to integrate them with yours, because to Phil's point around being able to delegate credits to other family members and so on, you're starting to get into the complex world of kind of mobile payment transactions and the security around that. What discussions have you had with those kind of mobile payment platforms, the likes of M-Pesa that specifically support Sub-Saharan Africa?
Okay, at the moment, we are still talking with the telecommunication companies holding sway in Nigeria, MTN, Airtel, and Globalcom. We have someone that has also worked on this, something similar in the past in healthcare financing systems. He's one of our mentors, so we are talking with him. We've not had any conversation with M-Pesa specifically because M-Pesa is more of a payment platform. It's possible in Kenya, but what we intend to do in the future may be to find a way to integrate Insura and M-Pesa and to streamline it towards healthcare financing.
So basically, just to add on to what Uzoma mentioned, it's really about having the telecommunication companies as our delivery touch points, our marketing touch points, and also delivery channels. But yes, we do consider that your suggestion about touching base with these mobile payment system might be a strategic advantage. But for the first few years, we'll be focusing on the telcos as access points, marketing touch points.
And forgive me, it might be a misunderstanding on my part, but the more I hear about this, the less you sound like an insurer and the more you sound like a mobile payments platform, actually.
Yes.
You're moving money around.
Yes, you are correct.
Okay.
You are correct.
You are correct.
The initial ambition of this team is really to become an insurance company, but as we grew throughout the discussions throughout the months, we realized that the real value add that we wanted to give is really to lessen that out-of-pocket expenditure, and setting up an entire insurance company is really requires a huge capital on our end. So it's really more of a mobile wallet. Yeah.
Neil, I was racking my brains to remember the name of the Kenyan system, but I had that in my mind as a system, and certainly as perhaps experiences that you can call on. How do you get adoption of such approaches throughout such a community?
Yeah, certainly with the M-Pesa platform, the beauty was that Vodafone had the network. They had enough mobile cell sites across Kenya and Tanzania that it made everything more accessible. And it was much easier for people to do payments via a mobile phone than to have tangible pounds and pence, so to speak, in their wallet because of the security. The moment someone got paid, someone was kind of standing in a dark alley about to relieve them of that payment, whereas it was a bit more difficult if it was kind of a virtual currency on a phone. So the M-Pesa thing really took off because of the breadth of the network that Vodafone had in Kenya and Tanzania. So that's why it's interesting to kind of hear about your plans there, because I think that's a pretty key part of the offering.
Okay, can I add something? Nigeria has, in Africa, Nigeria has the highest mobile phone penetration penetrability, and MTN and Globalcom have very huge networks. So as Insura, we intend to leverage on that network they already have. So they have loyal customers and everything. So we intend to leverage on that to help us reach out the market. So we are tapping into an existing market share, but then towards healthcare financing.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Insura. I think that concludes our final presentation, and we've got our last round of audience voting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Joanna. With this, we would like to conclude the block of pitches, basically, of the Voice of Tomorrow competition 2020. We would like to give a round of virtual applauses to Aptabridge, Broadbands, Hiltmo, Inteligo, ConnectIP, Babi, Insulink, Aquadex, and Insura. We invite you now to participate in the third and last audience voting, and we will be reconvening in a few minutes for some closing remarks from our jury panel. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for your voting. And we would like to have some closing remarks from the session from our jury panel. Next slide, please. Once again, we would like to thank everyone, all the supporters and allies from the GapSummit, and overall, especially, well, overall from the Voice of Tomorrow competition across all these months and given these circumstances. In particular today, well, we would like to thank the support from Dr. Joanna Green from R&D Innovation Capital, Richard Hebdon from Innovate UK, Dr. Phil Lullier from Merck Research Labs, and Niall Moultrie from Cambridge Consultants. With this, I would like to pass it to them and to have some concluding remarks and their impressions on the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ricardo. It was and thank you to all the teams that pitched today. It was a real pleasure to hear all your pitches and sit through it. It was a very impressive breadth of innovative ideas of really high quality. So I think we've got a tough job to go ahead in judging. So thank you very much. Neil, and maybe you want to go next.
Yeah, I'll just jump on that. Thanks, Joanna. Yeah, just echoing that. I'm particularly taken by not only the breadth, but also the geographical spread of our presentations. It's really heartening to see people looking at trying to identify solutions for parts of the global population that have been underserved to date by biotech. I think that's particularly commendable, and as Joanna said, I think we've got a pretty tough time to try and pick a winner, and some very, very strong bits in there.
Let me just echo those comments. I thought all the presentations were very high quality. I love the diversity of ideas across many sectors, as Joanna and Neil have said, and across many regions. I appreciated that team members came in and answered some of our questions. And let me just say, I wish you well in the competition. And if you go on to build any of the businesses, more importantly, wish you well in those endeavors.
Likewise, exciting afternoon, and thank you to everybody. Really good pitches and lots of innovation there. Great diversity, and also an interesting balance between commercial opportunities and societal impact. I thought was particularly great, and yeah, I look forward to hearing more. So yes, we've definitely got a tough time ahead to select a winner. But thank you.
Thank you very much. And with this, we would like to conclude the live session of the Voice of Tomorrow competition. We invite you now to join us at Spatial for the next 30 minutes for a networking session. And after that, we're going to have a flash talk session on the future of biotech. So please join us, and thank you very much for keeping with us on the Voice of Tomorrow competition 2020. Thank you to everyone.